All right. So, hi everyone. The reason we are having this so late is because it's hard to get a time between Texas and India, which mutually matches well. But this kind of works for Texas and for India. So, thank you everyone for joining. Good to see so many of you online, and we really hope that you'll bring all your questions today. And I'm sure this is an unusual occasion where we have Dean of Texas A&M University Law School, uh, uh, who's with us to answer your questions and tell us about the story of Texas A&M University School of Law and how it has grown over the years, what led to the phenomenal growth and climb up the charts, and what it like. I mean, also I personally want to know from Bobby what it looks like to run a law school in the US as the dean, and what's the experience like, and what is it very challenging, how does it work. So Bobby, welcome. We would love to start with, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your journey as a lawyer and then as an academic.
Absolutely. No. So let me say what a pleasure it is to be with you, Ramanoj, as well as with all the participants and all the viewers on YouTube. I have been coming to India since I was a little boy. My grandparents lived in Pune for many years, and so it's always a great opportunity to talk to folks, and particularly young folks in India, given how important I think you are, not just to the future of your country, but really the future of the entire world. My background, I actually originally went to college expecting to be a math major. I liked logical reasoning, and I liked there's formulas, and you figure out how to evaluate them. Is my voice still low? I saw in the text. Is it still low now? I tried to adjust it.
No, you are clearly audible. So maybe some.
Okay, good. Someone already. That's fine. So so I went to college again to study math. What I quickly found was that the math was very isolating. Although I loved the subject, it was very lonely. You did most of your work sitting alone, and I knew I didn't want to do that. And I pretty quickly bounced from there to law, and in many ways, it made a certain amount of sense. I always think about math, and you can think about engineering and other things as well, as having something in common with law, in that there's a set of rules. You've got to figure out how to apply those rules. When do the rules not apply? You've got to figure out how particular fact situations do or don't fit with one rule versus another rule. And so I switched over to law, and I loved it. I was I knew that's what I wanted to do. I already, as a college student, I did a little bit of teaching for some unusual reasons, and I loved the research I was doing as well for professors and others. And so by the time I was finishing college and went off to law school, I knew I wanted to do academia. I knew I wanted to be a professor. But nonetheless, I went into practice after graduating. I worked for a judge for a time, and then I worked for our U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and I loved it. I loved going to court. I loved the litigation process. I enjoyed it a lot. On the other hand, I realized that being a professor, the teaching part of it, as well as the research part of it, excited me even more. And so after a few years of practice, I made that shift over to teaching, and I've been doing that now for more than 20 years, 21 years.
Oh wow! Okay, how long? How many of those 20 years have you been a dean?
So I've been the dean of Texas A&M Law School for 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I was at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And there for about 6 or 7 years, I was the associate dean and then the vice dean of the law school there. So the dean, I've just the last 2.5 years, but prior to that, for 7 years, I was the associate dean and vice dean at another law school.
Okay, if I may ask you, how is the job of a dean or associate dean different than that of a professor?
Sure, very different. And again, there are those who don't like teaching or don't like research, and for them, being a dean is great because you're escaping from that. For those like me who love it, I mean, I miss my biggest. If you ask me what is it that I dislike most about being a dean, what I dislike most is not being able to teach as much as I would like. Because again, there's a certain, especially you're in the middle, but I'm very old. And so, by the time you get to my old age, the way you keep young is engaging and spending time with young people. And so, but when you're not teaching, it's harder to do that. And so that's a big difference. I teach a little bit, but I don't teach as much as I did when I was a professor. And then in terms of research, it's hard because doing good research, and all of you listening know from your own either school studies or practice, doing complex research requires sustained attention for a long period of time. You can't do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes and then come back to it an hour later. You really have to be able to sit for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4, 5, 6 hours and focus. And that's hard to do in the job of a dean. By contrast, what I enjoy about being a dean is I am doing things that enable us as a law school and enable our students and enable our faculty to do even more of that than they would do if I wasn't doing my job. So we do more teaching. It's better teaching. Our students get a better education. They have more success when they go out into the job market. Our faculty teach better. They teach more. They write more. They publish more. They get more visibility. So I am, in some sense, helping those things, the teaching and the research, but I'm helping them indirectly rather than doing them myself.
Okay, and so I mean, what has been the experience like since you have joined Texas A&M University Law School?
Sure. So I told you for many years before I came to Texas A&M, I was a vice dean, and before that an associate dean. And so over the years, there were a number of law schools here in the United States, and even a few overseas, where I was a candidate to be the dean. And in fact, in a few of those cases, 3 or 4 of them, I was actually offered the job and turned it down. And what I always used to tell people, and this is in some sense a good for all of you, whether you will become a dean or you will become a lawyer or a judge or any government official or a businessman, what I tell folks is that the question I always asked in trying to decide, do I want to go and become the dean of a particular law school, was whether that university, that law school, had the combination of the will and the capacity to go to the next level of their development. So what did I mean by that? So will is desire. Does an institution have the drive, the push, the anxious interest in trying to go to the next level? That's the will. Capacity is, do you have the resources? Do you have the human capital? Do you have the financial capital? Are you in the right location? So all the will in the world doesn't work if you don't have the capacity. And all the capacity in the world doesn't work if you don't have the will. But you would be amazed by how many institutions, businesses, universities, law schools, they have one but not the other, which is, I would say, is always a tragedy. The biggest tragedy, of course, is a place has the capacity but not the will, because then it's wasted potential. So that's what I was always looking for. And I didn't find it until I was offered the job here at Texas A&M. And again, we'll talk more about this, I think, as we go along. But what I saw in the case of this law school was this combination of, there was this real fervent desire and interest to succeed and thrive and have an impact. And there was also all of the necessary elements, the capacity to be able to get to that level. And so that's what brought me here. That's what excited me about, leaving a place I had spent my entire career, moving my family, and frankly, giving up all of the teaching and research that I was excited to do. That's why I came.
Okay, and so I mean, if you could give us a little bit more details on what was the willingness and what was the vision that actually made you come here, and what was the also the resources that you have been able to access since then.
Wonderful. So in India, this is a little more understandable to you or familiar to you, in that you actually have a good number of law schools that have been really created in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and many of which have done incredibly well. So that is much less common here in the US. For the most part, if we look at the 200 or so accredited US law schools, almost all of them have been around for 40, 50, or even 100, 120, 130 years. So most of them are long established. Now, it turns out, even in the case of A&M, we existed under a different university, a smaller university, for some years before. But really 7 years ago, when the law school became part of Texas A&M University, it was almost like being reborn or a new, starting from scratch. That dynamic of, I want to sort of see if I, hold on.
Yeah, they can hear you. I was just checking
How
if
is
they
it?
can hear you.
Is it better now? How is it now? Is it any better?
I can hear you. Even earlier, I could hear you clearly, and I still can hear you.
Okay, all right.
Loud and clear.
Let me know. Let me know if it's whatever.
I think the previous one was a little better than the current.
was better than now.
Yeah,
This is better now?
much better, much clearer. Yeah, please.
Okay. So the law school had been part of a small university that was not very research oriented, was not very even national or even let alone global in scale. And then 7 years ago, Texas A&M University, which had wanted to acquire a law school for maybe 30, 40 years now, the university had been interested in and focused on having a law school. They wanted to have a law school. And so in 2013, the university, after a bunch of other attempts with other law schools, they took this law school that had been part of this small college, small university, and they made it part of A&M. Texas A&M is a very big research university. It is the largest university in the United States, actually. It is in the top 20 universities in the United States in terms of research expenditures, the amount of money that is spent on research by the university. And so they acquired the law school, and they said, what do we need to do to move this law school into kind of, the 21st century, and really to make it a top school? It was, at the time it was acquired by the university, it was an unranked law school. So it means of those 200 law schools, it was in the bottom 50 in that range. So the university, that was the vision they had for the law school, was we want to make it a really world-class law school. And so again, we can talk more about this as we go along, but really invested heavily in what would be involved in doing that. Faculty, students, and other things, programs we can talk about, number one. Number two, they said, let's identify what areas we want to make a brand in and a name in. And in particular, they identified intellectual property and intellectual property rights and intellectual property law as a priority focus of the law school, emphasis of the law school. And again, we can talk more about that. And then really over the last 7 years have been focused very single-mindedly on advancing that mission. So started with my predecessor as dean, and then I took it up, again, 2.5 years ago, of moving the law school forward in those goals, and as a result, up in the rankings. So we have moved up more in the US News rankings than any law school in the last, I think it's 20 years or something, or 10 or 15 years. Okay. So more than 100 points, we estimate, we've gone up out of those 200. So we're now ranked number 60 in the country for overall ranking, from being something like 170 or 180 or 190. And so that's really been the framework of these last 7 years.
Right. And we can say that you are the fastest rising law school in the ranks.
That is totally right. Oh yeah, for sure. Sure.
And so another thing that I wanted to ask you was about Texas A&M University. I understand it's the biggest or the largest university in the US and very, very well endowed and so on. So if you could throw some light on that. Sure. What does that mean for the law school?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned largest size in terms of the number of students. We have more than 70,000 students at the university. So that's one data point. I mentioned also the figure of research. So when you think about, Harvard, what makes Harvard Harvard, and what makes Berkeley in these schools, really what the research profile of the university, the amount they are investing in research, really is the metric that oftentimes makes them what they are. And so when you look at that metric, Texas A&M is in the top 20 in the United States in terms of the amount they are investing in research. Almost $1 billion, or maybe now just over $1 billion a year in research expenditures by the university. $1 billion. $1 billion. Other features of the university that are worth noting. So, the location in Texas, I think, is an important one. It's a comprehensive university. So we have business school and engineering and health sciences and nursing and education and all of those. Location in Texas, I think, is an important part of the university's success. Texas is really central to the United States. I mean, if you look at sort of various points around the country, we are almost equidistant from every spot in the country. So we really are very centrally located, or all the edges of the country, I mean. Number one. Number two, politically, Texas is right in the middle. It's right in the middle of Republicans and Democrats, which makes it an important state in that regard. But probably the biggest one is huge economic growth of the state of Texas has made Texas A&M University a hugely important university. Texas is almost invariably one of the fastest growing states in terms of population, in terms of companies. So it's kind of there's a daily business newsletter that goes out for Dallas-Fort Worth. We're in the North Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which actually has a large South Asian population, the Indian population here in Dallas and Fort Worth. But there's a newsletter that goes out that talks about relocations, and now they have a column that is specifically about relocations from California, because again, basically there is not a day that passes that some company doesn't relocate from California to Texas, because taxes are lower, business growth is better, more working population, more working employees. So Texas is growing incredibly quickly, which is helpful for the university. Okay, now how does all of that, you asked, Ramanuj, how does it translate to the university? The translation to the university, to the law school. The way it translates to the law school is we have the ability to be aggressive in terms of going internationally and recruiting students. We have the ability to be aggressive in terms of reaching out nationally to students all over the United States, to recruiting good students, even if we have to invest in them in terms of scholarships, to recruiting and increasing the growth of the size of our faculty. So we've hired, I think it's now 33 faculty over the last 5 years. So many law schools, their total faculty is 30 or so faculty, 35 faculty. We have increased 30 by 33. So we have 33 hires that we've made over the last 5 years. So we've invested in faculty. It also means that in areas of strength, like intellectual property that we'll come back to, the university's strength in that area. So the university is very strong in engineering, very strong in computer science. That helps us building our reputation and brand and making connections for ourselves, for the law school, and for our students in the intellectual property arena. So those are a few of the ways that universities.
Also, I understand that for an US university, the strength of the alumni is very critical. Even in India, we see for law schools, if you are from National Law School Bangalore or from NUJS or Delhi University, you have a certain advantage. And you find many of your alumni from Supreme Court to everywhere. So I think that's how it is in the US. So how does that work for your law school or for?
Very good. So it is true in the US in general, and it's true at some level at every school. But the truth of the matter is there are universities that are the alumni community is relatively more committed to and loyal to their university than others. So Texas A&M, I went to Princeton University. And I used to describe Princeton alumni as especially loyal and committed to their university until I came to Texas A&M. They call it the Aggie Network because they're called Aggies is the nickname. And so they call it the Aggie Network. And the joke is that if you are wearing your Aggie ring, they call it, if you get a degree, you get an Aggie ring. If you're wearing your Aggie ring, you don't need a resume to get a job. You just hold up your ring and they give you the job. So no, there is a very strong sense of commitment to the fellow among the alumni to other alumni. So much so that even the alumni of other universities talk to me about it all the time. And they say, this is a little crazy. What happens with Aggies? We call ours Aggie lawyers. They call them Aggie lawyers. He said, among the Aggie lawyers, the level of loyalty is very high. So one said, when a student comes to meet me, this is a graduate of another law school, a very good law school. When a graduate comes and meets me, I like them. I go and I tell the hiring partner, you should look at this resume. When the Aggie Law School, when the A&M Law School graduate goes to the Aggie lawyer with their resume, they take it to the hiring partner and say, I already hired them. Please find them an office. So there really is a very strong
bonding and connection between them.
Someone mentioned sort of some of the remarkable alumni. So lots of people in government is one thing I would say. So we have lots of folks who've been in government over time. But actually the statistic that I'm aware of, I could probably find the exact names, but I can't tell them off the top of my head.
Actually, I've seen a list on Wikipedia. I have seen a list.
Okay, but I was going to say, no, but in particular, this one is that Fortune magazine looks at their Fortune 500 CEOs and looks at the universities they went to. And Texas A&M has the largest number of Fortune 500 CEOs of any university in the United States. So more than Harvard, more than Princeton, more than Yale, more than any of these universities.
Wow.
So a bunch of big oil companies, a number of big healthcare companies, the CEOs are Aggies.
All right. Any famous lawyers or anything like that?
Famous, well, lawyers are relatively new. So because remember, the law school has only been part of the university for 7 years. So lawyers, they will be famous, but not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. So so another question, and I'll encourage everyone to ask questions already. I mean, just keep asking the questions in the chat. We'll take them up as and when they're relevant. Okay. So one question I wanted to ask you is about academic career as a lawyer in the US, right? So what does it look like, and can an Indian lawyer aspire for it? Of course, having 𝗧𝗲𝗄𝗵 ma'am in Texas, and there are several of them, I believe, from Indian origin who are at your law school.
Yeah. So we have two actually. So at A&M is the university in general, but the law school in particular is very international. So we have two faculty who are from India originally. We have faculty who are from Hong Kong, Italy, Spain, Germany, Mexico, Israel, Germany. I keep going. So very international faculty. So in fact, two from India, the 𝗬𝗏𝗪𝗏 and 𝗬𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗏, both had worked in the intellectual property area, actually. So here's what I would say. In terms of academic careers in the United States, there are two categories. There's the tenure stream faculty, and the non-tenure stream faculty. The tenure stream faculty, the main difference is they focus on research as part of their job. The non-tenure stream faculty, it's teaching. So tenure stream faculty do teaching and research. The non-tenure stream faculty do just teaching. So it partially depends on what you want to do. If you want to teach as a straight matter, that's one path. If you want to do the research path, the tenure stream path, you want to start doing research and writing, right? So you want to, even today, start thinking about what are topics you're interested in. Start reading a lot about them, research about them. Start to write. You might write short things at the beginning, and then they get longer over time. Find mentors in academia. So if you can find a mentor who is already a professor, they can give you feedback on your work. Maybe you can co-author with them. All of these are opportunities that will help you position yourself as a candidate to be an academic on the research side, to be a tenure stream academic. And there's actually a growing number of in law, but obviously in disciplines generally, of law professors in the U.S. Who are started their education or their professional work in India.
All right. There are a few top IP law schools. I have a list with me. So there's Stanford University at the top, the New York University, Santa Clara, George Washington, University of Houston, which is also in Texas, University of New Hampshire, and then Texas A&M University. So you in this ranking, what do they look at before ranking you here? Because you're ranked with the top universities, UPenn, right? So you're ranked with the top law schools out there. So how do they compare? And if a law student is looking at this ranking, how should they interpret this?
Sure. So what I tell people is rankings are important. And you should give them the appropriate weight. So what does that mean? So, for example, there are top law schools that have very little by way of intellectual property. So, if someone tells me I'm interested in intellectual property, then Texas A&M is a good choice for them in a way that it might not be if they were interested in family law or some other subject, right? So that's the first thing I would say, is that, again, sort of recognizing that the specialty rankings, again, including the ones you mentioned, the U.S. News specialty rankings, where the A&M Law School is ranked ranked eighth for intellectual property, gives you a sense of, if that's your area of interest, that potentially this is a school you should consider, even if otherwise you might be going to a school that was overall higher ranked. Now, I'm not suggesting that therefore all that matters is the specialty ranking. Of course, it's the case that the overall ranking matters too, just as money matters too. The cost is also important, and location is also important, and all of these other things. So you've got to weigh all of those variables, all of those considerations in evaluating where to go. But in terms of the specialty rankings, sometimes it's vaporware. Sometimes it's just a given university is high ranked, and they say that they do intellectual property, so they get a high rank. So I would always say you should dig into it and try to see how many professors do they have who do intellectual property. What is the range of courses? What are the programs they have? But for us at A&M, we have 8 professors of our 60 or so professors. 8 of them do intellectual property or technology or privacy or cybersecurity work in that general area. So that's a big number. I think there's only like 1 or 2 law schools in the country that have more faculty working in that area than we do. So that helps. It means more classes, more opportunities to do research, more opportunities to collaborate, more opportunities to spend time with professors, all of those kinds of things. But other things, we also sort of have lots of interdisciplinary opportunities. So because of, I mentioned the university and how strong it is in engineering and computer science and the like, robotics, all of this, there are lots of opportunities to sort of be part of conferences and gatherings and lectures that are interdisciplinary, that are engineers together with lawyers, together with business people and the like. And then the third thing I would mention is
and maybe collaborate with a startup or something. Maybe that.
But exactly. No, I was going to say third one, but then I'm going to say fourth. So let me do that one first. Right. So then, given where we are, Fort Worth, Texas, I talked about the growth of Texas. Right. There is tons of that activity. So the opportunity for students and then graduates to connect in with startup companies, to work with them, to collaborate with them, to learn from them, this kind of thing is huge. There's a huge amount of opportunity like that. And we structure that in particular while you're still a student. We have multiple intellectual property related clinics, right? So rather than, many schools have none. Some schools have 1. We have 2, and depending on how you define it, 3 clinics that speak to students who have interest in entrepreneurship, intellectual property, technology, and the like. So those are the kinds of opportunities that we offer, and why I think we are ranked as high as we are. Those are the things that I would look at a given school to see how do they compare, and what do they look like.
So you have come up the ranks in the last 2.5 years, 3 years. What has, since you have come, what did you change, and how did that lead to the growth?
I'm not sure I would say so much, we changed something exactly. We are both continuing and accelerating things that we started to do 7 years ago. So what I would say is that, fundamentally, the business of a law school is the business of human capital, right? It's good people, and the good people are good, strong faculty and good, strong students. So that's really how we have made progress. So we are both continuing to recruit excellent, strong faculty. We have a great faculty member we hired who does privacy, technology and privacy is her area that we hired just this year. And she's fantastic, but others as well. So continuing to recruit good faculty, and also continue to invest in our faculty. So enabling our faculty to put on great conferences and programs and develop new courses, and all of those things allow us to sort of strengthen the flat word intellectual capital of our faculty. Okay, then what about students? So with students, we are over the top maybe even more than we were 3 years ago, aggressive about going out there and trying to find good students. We don't just want any students. We're not trying to fill seats, right? We have the luxury of lots of students want to come. So we can take the time to go and find who are the strong US students, who are the strong Indian students, who are the strong students from the rest of the world, and bringing them to the law school to ensure that sort of we're advancing the quality of education and raising that bar. So all of that is showing up in ranking, right? Because the faculty reputation has gone up, because the quality of students has gone up, and then I'd say maybe the last piece is, as the quality of students has gone up, their success after graduation has also gone up, and that also then plays into the ranking. So that's what I'd say is we are really, really focused on and really, really good at human capital, right? Great faculty and great students.
That's great. There are questions about how you decide who to admit to the law school, and I guess they would want to know about the LLM program. How do you select people, and how do you go about it?
Well, first, let me start with the general principle. The general principle is, as I said, we want great students, right? That's what we're looking for. We don't want, high-paying students or whatever else it is. We want great students. Now, again, obviously, there's a cost of tuition. But we do our best to try and make coming to Texas A&M as cost-effective as possible. And we think we do pretty well when we compare our costs, even before scholarship, let alone with scholarships that we can provide to strong students. We compare very favorably with our peer institutions, with other law schools. So we focus on that because that's important, because that's the way we get great students to come. And then in terms of the criteria, so obviously we're interested in background, like what is it, how have you done, what have you done academically, how have you performed, where did you go to university? We're interested in professional experience. Have you had good and interesting employment experiences that we think will add to the community, that will increase the prospects of your success? Of course, we pay attention to English language skills, because again, not because we of any bias other than we want you to be able to succeed. And so we want to make sure you have the good language skills to be able to thrive and succeed. So those are a few of the criteria, but we really are, again, the first principle is looking for strong students. And then we're looking at the whole student to try and figure out, okay, is this someone who we think is going to benefit from being here and who will add to our community?
Understood. And so, like, what kind of people get rejected in that case? Like, you have so many applications. So
so again, I can't say. I mean, there are lots of reasons why someone might get in or not get in. So there's not really categories for why people are rejected. But I would say, again, oftentimes we have a concern with a given student about language skill, right? There's oftentimes a consideration. Not uncommonly, we will look at somebody's academic performance and say, it's fine, but it's not strong enough that we are confident that they will succeed. And it's a lot of money to spend if you're not going to succeed. Some of that is also looking at the institution. So now we have gotten to know the Indian market well enough to know that, again, we can distinguish between, if somebody has these grades from this institution, it may mean something different than these grades from another institution. Now there's not a bar in that regard. It's not that if you don't go to these schools, then you don't get admitted. That's obviously stupidity, and we would never do that. And it's not even that unless your grades are X, you don't get in, right? We're looking at that whole package of it. So what I'd say is there's not really so much this is the type of student who doesn't get admitted, as much as it's how would I say it? On the whole, who are the students who, based on background and experience and academic performance and language skills, are most likely to benefit and most likely to succeed? Right.
You also take into account, like, if people have overcome a certain difficulties in their circumstances and so on.
Sure, absolutely. No, well, again, that goes directly. Look, we have now. There's actually lots of data, at least in the U.S., data about this. That academic success oftentimes is correlated with what we call, the term they use is grit. So the question is, have you managed to overcome and persevere through? And the truth of the matter is that makes sense. For all of you who've been to school, you know that there are always the moments when you go, I have no idea what the professor is talking about. And then the question is, a third of the students say, to hell with it, I don't care. A third of them just say, okay, I'm going to sort of, just continue the way I am and hope for the best. But a third of them say, damn it, I'm going to figure it out. right? And they do the work to figure it out, right? So it is the case that that third category, both in school and in professional life, tends to succeed more.
So basically, you're looking for the grittiest students. If
Exactly.
Okay,
Good.
that's great.
Good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Good.
So guys, there's a book called Grit by 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗏. It's really amazing. Make sure you read it.
Oh, good. Very good.
Okay. All right. So that brings me to another very important question. Like in India, people are extremely rank conscious, and somebody is asking, how do we compare 𝗬𝗼 School of Law with, let's say,
Sure.
NUJS or NLS or 𝗲𝗏? So I don't know if Bobby knows the answer. I have, being an Indian, I have done a quick research. So there is something called QS Global Rankings, okay, which ranks universities across the world. And in that, only one Indian university, which is a law school, is ranked. Can you guys guess which university? Not NUJS, not NLS Bangalore. There's only one university, 𝗲𝗏, right? So you guys would have seen the ads. What would be, what do you think is the rank of 𝗲𝗏 in the global QS rankings? Just a guess, like 100, 200, 500. 100 and 150 in Asia or South Asia, something like that. In Asia, it is 100 to 150. Global ranking, where does it stand? No idea? 650 to 700. You can go check it out right now. It is between 650 to 700. And 𝗬𝗼 is at 169. I just did a quick Google search. So 169 versus 650, that should give you a frame of reference. Not to say any university is bad or anything, but of course, 𝗲𝗏 is a great Indian university. We're very proud of it in India. But obviously, Texas A&M University is much bigger, larger, and have that kind of international scope, right? So you can just, match them, just do your research. And you can also see there are sometimes, sometimes National Law School Bangalore has been ranked also by some organization. So you can see how it ranks in comparison to US universities, or you can just see, there are other ways to see also. For example, you can see the impact factor of articles or research by faculty members of two law schools, and you'll be able to see, right? Okay, 𝗍𝗏𝗏 is saying we'll make sure together we'll make 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 #1 in the world. I say cheers.
But that's the goal. I support you. Though I do want to say that again. I don't want to make the folks at 𝗲𝗏𝗏 mad. 𝗲𝗏𝗏 is awesome, also. So
yeah, 𝗲𝗏𝗏 is awesome. Of course.
I don't want them to associate Texas with anti-𝗲𝗏𝗏. 𝗲𝗏𝗏 is awesome. So yeah, no. So I would agree. Everything obviously, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 correctly points out sort of the a reference point for it. What I would tell you is again, I'm repeating myself, but what you want to look at is where's the overall rank of a law school? Where's the rank of the university? Where's the overall rank of the law school? Then you do want to look at if you have a specialty. So again, if somebody wants to do intellectual property, I have a different conversation with them about A&M than I do with someone who wants to do family law, right? Because again, in intellectual property, I know it's the case, and actually we have the ranking to show it, to say that A&M really holds its own with these top 10 law schools. But then the last piece I would say that's important is you got to weigh all the other factors as well, right? So, again, I'm making this up, but I'm not making it up, but these are examples. Fast growth of Texas, Indian community in Texas, the economic relationship, strong economic relationship between India and Texas. Those are all things that, should they be dispositive? Of course not. But they should be part of the consideration of what you do. Likewise, where do I want to be, right? Should be part of the consideration, right? What fits with your interest in this kind of, with your attitude in mind. So weigh all of those things. But on the ranking piece, I agree with 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 about the broad frame. Then I'd say look at those other pieces as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's great advice, but I'm sure people will follow the rankings blindly as usual. So, all right. So, thank you for that, Bobby. Now, if you could just tell us a little bit about, how you see the future of the law school going forward. What are the things you're excited about? I have actually another question that people have been repeatedly asking about placements, right? How are the current job prospects of graduates? How do they find jobs? Do you provide any support at the law school? What kind of things happen there? So in terms of giving support for recruitment, especially LLM students apart from JD students.
Sure. Okay. So first, in terms of the future, the first piece of future is more of the same. I mean, we have no particular reason to believe that the trajectory of the law school is going to change anytime soon. Now, of course, it's the case that we went up 23 points this past year in the rankings. If we were to repeat that, we would be #1 law school in the country in 3 years. I don't think that's probably going to happen. So it's not that more of the same, like exactly the same, but the broad trajectory of the law school advancing in ranking, in quality of faculty, in quality of students, in placement, so the most recent statistic came last week that we are now #1 in the state of Texas in terms of bar passage, passing the Texas bar exam. That means even ahead of, back to rank, University of Texas is here in Texas, and it ranks I don't remember exactly, but I think it ranks around 15 or 16, 14, 15, 16 in the US News rankings. But our bar passage rate was actually higher than theirs this past year, or this 2020. So the broad point about the future is that the trajectory will continue, #1. #2, we will be more and more global. So we are, again, we are well on our way to sort of conquering the United States. And so, now the time is to look abroad. And so we're focused on that. And so that's another characteristic that I would say in terms of, if I look over the next 5 years, will be another feature of what we are doing, is building our international visibility, including in India, especially for some of the reasons we've talked about, but frankly, all over the world. Third thing I would say is, again, building areas of strength. So we've talked about intellectual property as one area where the law school is really quite strong and will remain strong and is getting stronger and stronger. We're also very strong in arbitration, the international arbitration, but also domestic arbitration and negotiation and mediation, which is, I know, a growing sort of field of study and practice in India. So we're actually ranked #6. Out of 200 law schools, we're ranked #6 in the country, in the United States, for that area, for arbitration, negotiation, and mediation. We are very strong in, but we're going to continue to build in, energy and the environment is another area that we want to build more in. And then 2 new areas will be cybersecurity and privacy that we're going to be building strength in, and then health. The area of health law, health regulation, health policy will be another area. So that's the third thing I would say about what the future holds for us.
Yeah. These are all the most fastest growing legal work and sector. So yeah,
and also, not, again, it's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, I see a very clear connection with strengths of Texas as a state. That's
it.
Right.
So what we're looking at where are the needs in Texas and opportunities in Texas, jobs and otherwise. Where are the needs nationally and where are the needs internationally? And the idea is to play into those. You asked about the placement piece. So in the placement piece, our overall, although the metrics as collected in the US are based on JD students, on those numbers, we have sort of been, progressively rising at a pretty good clip. So we're now above 90%. We are for kind of what we call gold standard jobs. For the best jobs, we actually ranked 19th in the country this past year. In terms of employment in those categories of jobs. And so we're doing very well in general in terms of placement. Some of that is the Aggie network that we talked about. Some of it is, we work hard at it. As our LLM population is growing, we are working very hard to extend that to our LLMs as well. Depending on visa status, students have different options in terms of ability to stay, not stay for a certain amount of time, get sponsored, all of those kinds of things. So it depends on the particular student. But what we were trying to do is using language skills and international connections, their connections back home, to try and connect in those LLM students with particular employers, whether for internships, for employment opportunities, whether short-term or medium-term or longer-term. So we're working very hard at that, including figuring out how do we staff that, how do we make those connections. Now, with all students, JD students, LLM students, all our students, the job search ultimately is up to the student, right? Because it's hard for us to do it for them. But in terms of sort of our framework for supporting them and being able to do that, we really are very much focused on.
Right. If we see, most of the people are quite concerned when they are doing LLM from India these days. And the concern is that they do an LLM with the hope that they would be able to have an international career in the long run. but they are unable to do it, and they come right back right after their LLM, right? So and they are unable to make any headway into an international career. So this is a concern for many people who want to do LLM.
Sure.
What would be your advice to them?
So here's what I'd say. The first thing I would tell you is it is I am nervous about, just as I would be nervous if an American student, American born, even let's say Indian American student said, I'm going to go get a degree in India only for the purpose of being able to stay in India and work, right? Just in general, whether you're American or Indian or work here or there or anyplace else, the job market is so unpredictable that makes me nervous. That's not a well-advised strategy. You should figure out what is it you want to do. You should figure out, will a given degree or course of study, and it doesn't have to be a degree, it could be a certificate, but will a given course of study help me get to that goal, right? But also, frankly, does it give me flexibility and options over time? So the question I would say, and we've talked about this some, I know 𝗏𝗵𝗵𝗏 and I have had, is does it do work for an Indian lawyer to have an LLM from a US university or a certificate from a US university? If the answer is yes, well then the degree or the certificate does potential work for you, whether you're in India, the US, or Birmingham, England, right? So that's the first thing I would say. As a matter of the frame of reference, I would encourage you to think about it that way, number one. Number two, I would also say that it's important to think about this as it is the case. I talk to my American students all the time about the fact that they should know that given the nature of the market that we are in today versus when I would graduate from law school, let alone 20 years before that, it is the case that all of you on this call will go through multiple jobs with multiple institutions, oftentimes in multiple countries, right? So don't think of it as I'm in India, I go to Texas, I get an LLM, I get a job in Texas, and I die in Texas. That sounds interesting, but it's not representative of 99% of lawyers, business people, doctors, whatever. It's just not so you're in some sense, you're trying to build a set of credentials that will enable you to thrive in an increasingly globalized world, right? So the question is, absolutely, do we have students who come to our law school and other US law schools, and after graduating, they practice in the US for a short time or a long time? Of course we do. There's lots of them. On the other hand, do we have ones who come and immediately go back and are very successful, including because of their own? Absolutely. Do we have ones who go back and forth? Of course we do. Do we have ones who come, get the degree, go back, and then in India, for example, or China or Korea or someplace else, they are better able to engage US clients because of their US connections, right? And the network that they've built and the relations they've built, this kind of thing. So that's how I would encourage you to think about it. The more you think about it narrowly, it's not so much that it's not a good option anymore. It's that it's not actually representative of the reality of the way working life looks today, right? And you want to be prepared. You want to have your resume, your credentials, your background prepare you for all of that, not just for one possibility.
Right. So I have one question about remote work, because we have seen remote work has created unprecedented opportunities for global work. And there are actually a lot of Indian people who have already been working in IP in the US through LPOs and other ways. But now there is a trend of hiring directly such people. And we have done a number of webinars before where people who are working as paralegals, Indian lawyers working as paralegals, can get better wages than they can get even from Indian law firms. So if you can throw some light on those opportunities. And also it is possible for an Indian lawyer to qualify in the US as a lawyer and then practice the same law from India, and they'll have significant cost advantages because they will be qualified to file things at USPTO, and they can file, documents of global clients for trademark, patents, etc. So if you can.
So here's what I'd say. Obviously, we don't know yet, and we won't know for some time exactly how much of an impact all of the, particularly just the last, this year, with coronavirus and the pandemic, how much of an impact it will have on the way law is practiced, this kind of thing. Now, but it's not as if it's a new phenomenon. I mean, the globalization of legal practice, people have been writing about and talking about for 40 years now, right? The truth of the matter is it's just a reality now. I talk about intellectual property. If somebody teaches intellectual property in India or in the United States, and they don't spend at least a third of the class on international and comparative or international and foreign law, they're a bad professor. So if you took intellectual property and you didn't spend a third to a half of your class talking about international law rules and talking about foreign rules, you didn't learn intellectual property law, right? Because the truth of the matter is that the reality of intellectual property practice today, and that's true of other areas of bankruptcy practice and antitrust practice and other areas too, transactional practice, even via tax practice. It is true that there is a lot of domestic law, but there is a massive and very fast growing foreign and international component as well. So what that means is that the ability to take advantage of remote practice opportunities is only going to get bigger and bigger over time, right? My guess is that many lawyers in India will be actively engaged with U.S. clients and U.S. service providers and so on. And likewise, in the reverse, right? To be clear, the U.S. lawyers will be doing that with India. And so that's where, again, it comes back to the earlier question of, from my vantage, the benefit of having the dual credentials is you are a more marketable candidate for that to any given employer, to any given client, so on and so forth. And that's what you want, right? You want to be the person they say, I want him or I want her, rather than those people over there. And why? Because they really are able to operate in both of these worlds in a way that others can't.
All right. So there's a question from Divya I find is very interesting. Is it possible to simultaneously engage in research with TAMU research centers like CLIP, CLIP, while pursuing an LLM?
Sure, absolutely. No. So I would say, lots of students, I mentioned in we have 8 faculty. Many students do that, right? It's, again, while they're in the course of their studies, they're also serving as a research assistant for a professor, or they're writing a paper for a professor, or even in some cases, writing something together with them. So no, that's very much, and again, what I would say is, especially if you're a student who has more experience, more background, you've studied more longer or more, you have more work experience, even more so, right? Because then what you're bringing to the professor is your own expertise, that you can contribute to the work that you would do with them. So absolutely. And our faculty, again, I give them great credit. The faculty at A&M Law School are very much committed both to the teaching enterprise and to the scholarly enterprise. So they love it when they meet each other, when they come together, and they're able to do both.
Wow. There's a question. There are actually many, I can see many of you here are students in the certification course on IP laws that has been launched in collaboration between TAMU Law School and 𝗨𝗲𝗄. So they are asking, will it provide me any advantage to get admission in TAMU for further studies in IP laws?
Well, I'll say that I'm going to leave that up to Ramanuj. He'll decide. No, what I would say is look. So I told you again, what's your background? What's your level of interest? What's your level of engagement? All are relevant considerations. So of course it is the case. Again, even if it was a course by some other school, I would say, okay, yeah, but this person has really demonstrated strong interest in a meaningful way. So that's one. But obviously, again, the fact that you already know A&M, you maybe even made some connections to some of the faculty, these kinds of things, of course, that's going to help as well.
All right. Yes. Somebody say only a tad bit. No, Anu, it will help a great deal. I assure you. Don't worry. Okay. So there's a question on. There's a bunch of questions, and there's only 2 minutes left. Can we extend this for like maybe 5-7 minutes? Bobby, yeah.
For me, of course, I'm glad to. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So there's a lot of questions on scholarships. That how do I get a scholarship, and what is the cost of LLM if I do it at TAMU, right? So what?
So we have a bunch of different programs. So it depends on, again, what's the structure of the program you come into, ranging from fully online, half online, half online from India, and then in person, or then whatever, and fully in person. So the numbers I I would be throwing out very random numbers. If I gave you numbers, what I will say is, and so they're all numbers that are.
What about a fully physical, like physically present in Texas entirely and an LLM?
So I would want to look before I quote the number off the top of my head, Ramanuj, unless you know.
Okay. No, I
so
don't
again,
have to.
so we can get back to folks with the exact figure. So what I would say is, and again, because it ties into your point about
maybe you can
scholarships,
say something about the last year or last 2 years or some average.
So I want to say that it was, I think after scholarship, I think students were paying in the mid 20s, 25,000 or 26,000, something like that. I think is roughly correct. But again, I just want to be clear.
But that's an idea, right?
Yeah, that's roughly. But what I would say is, again, so we have
the one thing is that this is significantly less than, say, what you would pay at University of Pennsylvania or any other.
It's not in the same comparison. No.
Like,
It's not in the same.
It's shockingly less, right? So it's like if I look at the list of top 10 IP universities, you go anywhere, probably we are talking about a 3x difference.
Oh, no. It's a dramatically more, and again, some of that's because we're a public institution. Some of it's because we are, again,
the cost of living in Texas is much lesser than New York or Stanford.
Super low. So no. So even tuition. So again, if you're looking at the comparison, that I can speak to without saying particular numbers. Compared to our peer institutions, peer in IP, like this very strong, high-ranked IP schools, the tuition is not even a real number in comparison. It's less than half in most cases, and in some cases a third of the tuition of those places. But then, to the extent to which you're looking anywhere on the coast, and particularly New York and California, the cost of living, it's not higher, it's 2 to 3 times again, more. So the cost is much less. Now again, for some students, the cost doesn't matter. So if the cost doesn't matter to you, then it doesn't matter, and that's okay. But if the cost matters, A&M is a very logical, and that's because we're good at what we do. It's because we want good students. So we want to price it at a good level. And frankly, it's also partially we are when we're trying to get a good student, we have scholarships on top of an already low base tuition. We then have additional scholarship that we do on top of that to recruit good students.
Right.
So what I would say is that for students who are interested, if we're a fit for you, then I would encourage you to apply and sort of look at it, and then we can look at that.
People are asking what is the fee for fully online LLM course, and there are many questions on YouTube also. Several people have asked, are there any plans to begin LLM in IP in distance learning in the future? 𝗲𝗏𝗧𝗏 is asking, and there are many questions on online LLMs. So if you have something on that.
I hope we will be. How's that for an answer? God willing. Yes. No. So we are. We do have an online LLM already. Although not structured as well as we would like, particularly for students from India. And so we are in the process of trying to establish and develop a online LLM offering that would be particularly a good fit as a matter of educational outcomes and content and programmatic areas of focus for Indian students. So that's in process. Again, I always hate to promise things. But my fingers are all my fingers are crossed. That perhaps by as early as this coming summer or by fall, we'll be able to have that available as well.
Wonderful.
And in terms of the folks who are asking about the specific fees, you're welcome to whatever. If you can't find it otherwise, email me or email 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀, and we can make sure we get you those numbers as well.
And Bobby, there are a lot of, I want to draw your attention. Many people are saying that we should have a course on arbitration like we have in IP law.
Absolutely. Okay. No. And again, so all I want to say we are one step ahead of you, but really what I mean is my host is a brilliant guy, and so these are all things that we have been talking about. Ramanuj knows this, but for everyone else, talking about as opportunities and possibilities, given again the combination of the needs in India and where it is that we have strength, right? Because again, I don't want anybody to come to A&M Law School for whom it's not beneficial, but for students in those areas where we have this national, international reputation, we want to make it as available as possible.
Right. There's a question on one of the best life lesson you want to share from
Best
Rishabh.
life lesson. Good question. I would say best life lesson. The heart is the best. I can think of lots of life lessons, but I would probably say don't lose sight of what you want to do, in the pursuit of what others think you should want to do. And that's true of all of us. But I will say it's particularly true of lawyers in my experience. Lawyers, we have a tendency, maybe because we're a conservative bunch or something, there is a strong tendency in my experience to say, everybody wants this job or wants to go to this school or wants to do this kind of work. And so I'm going to go chase after that as well, right? I tell the story of, I lived in Russia, but actually it was then the Soviet Union, many, many years ago, before the Soviet Union collapsed. And there were terrible shortages of everything all the time. And so one day I was leaving. I was going back to the US for a few months. And with some friends, we were on the way to the airport. They were taking me to the airport. And as we were walking to the train station, there was a long line nearby. And because of the shortages, when you would see a long line, you would race to the line and you would go stand in the line and then get to the end. And whatever it was, we said, if 50 people are waiting, it must be something good, so I'm going to get it too. So I went in the line. I came back afterwards, and I had 3 rolls of toilet paper on a string. And I said, look, I got them, and it was a good price too. And my friend said, but Bobby, you're going back to the United States to where there's toilet paper everywhere. There's no toilet paper shortage. Why did you do this? And I said, well, I don't know. Everyone else was doing it. So I thought I should do it too. Okay. So my biggest life lesson is, don't go chase after toilet paper just because everybody else is. Just because everybody else says they want this job or that job, you should figure out what it is that you want to do. What is it that excites you? And that's what you should be devoting your time and energy to.
Wow, that's an amazing advice. There's one question that I personally had. So, I was just reading the other day as to why, US is ahead of China, and that it'll continue to happen even despite the pandemic and everything. And it said that it is because everybody wants to go, like the most brilliant minds around the world all want to migrate to USA. Not all, maybe a lot of them want to migrate to USA, and USA is welcoming for that. And USA is really cool. Everybody wants to at least go. Every researcher wants to go research in USA. Every lawyer wants to go. I mean, they're watching Suits, if nothing else, and they definitely want to go and experience it. And so what do you say to that? Like, is like, how about Texas? Because people have a lot of exposure to New York, to California, through the different, things that we watch, even Arizona from Breaking Bad or something. But how about Texas? Why is Texas not depicted in popular law-related stuff?
Okay, well, first I'd say number one, I'd say give us time, right? It's coming soon enough. That's number one. But number two, and more importantly, I'd say, the expression we use in Texas is everything is bigger in Texas. And it's very true. I will say, like, I've been in Texas only 2.5 years, but it really is quite amazing. So almost every major law firm in the United States has already now opened one office in Texas. And now most of them are working on opening their second office. Because there's just so much work and so much growth and so much economic activity. You may have seen that Elon Musk has not only is moving Tesla from California to Texas, he himself has moved. He literally moved out of California and moved to Texas. And that's true of tons of others as well. So what I would tell you is that Texas is the mindset of Texas really is on doing big things, right? And so for those who are excited about that, Texas is a great place. And it's a place that, again, I think, even the lawyer shows, I say, will soon enough be placed in Dallas and in Houston and even in Fort Worth rather than in LA and New York, because again, pretty soon everyone who lives in New York and LA is going to be living in Texas anyway.
Wow, great. Fantastic. So we hopefully will have some nice series from Texas about lawyers.
Exactly. Soon.
Yeah, TAMU should definitely sponsor it, if nothing else.
I was going to say, exactly. That could be our next project, Ramanoj. We'll work on that. You can be
Okay.
the executive producer. I'll be the creative director.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. And it's already, we are 8 minutes past our schedule. So I thank Bobby for making time for this and really appreciate. Oh, if you can just say a couple of words about what you think about our program, because I think we missed that question. That's important. Anything you want to say about that? Why this program?
No, we mean this particular program?
This
no,
IP,
the certificate program.
the certificate IP prosecution.
Oh, fantastic. Look, so again, so what I would say is from my vantage, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's a little bunch of things. It goes back to figuring out what it is that you want to do, right? This kind of program gives you an opportunity to get a meaningful exposure and to sort of, come to an understanding of, okay, I'm a little bit excited about this. I'm moderately excited. I'm very excited. That's one benefit. The second benefit is that it is the case that the direction the world is going, I know it's true in India, I know it's true in the United States, and I think it's everywhere, is this direction, what they call micro-credentials. So, of course, getting a degree is valuable, but it turns out getting all sorts of certificates and these kind of, again, what they call micro-credentials can be hugely impactful and beneficial as well, as a way to ensure that you are situating yourself for professional opportunities, for visibility, this kind of thing. And then the last piece I'd say is just in terms of content, and this is, I know, true of what we do at A&M, and I know it's true of everything that we have done collaboratively with 𝗏𝗧𝗀, the quality of the program is critical, right? And that's not just because we want to do things good quality, it's because we know that everything you do, the quality of it will determine how the next thing goes and the next thing and the next thing. And so I would say that from everything I've seen of the content of it and my connections to it, it's great content as well. So anyway, so I think it's great, opens lots of doors in India. It is a good credential to have, and the content is fantastic. And so for all those reasons, I would strongly commend it to you. And again, I join with others in saying, let's figure out what the next one is after that. Okay.
And there are a lot of students here from that program. So you guys can say hi if you're here. So that'll be good. Say hi to Bobby. There's 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗧 Garg here who really want to ask a question to you in person.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ramanoj sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Robert sir, for being such a eloquent speaker. I learned a lot. My question to you specifically is, how did you manage to make this program so cost effective, first of all? And secondly, in comparison to an online LLM from Texas A&M, where does this program stand? Thank you so much.
Good. Okay. So cost effective. So cost effective is basically, again, there's two models of everything. This is true of any, if you sell cars or you sell shoes or you sell anything, there's different models of what you're trying to accomplish. One is you are trying to extract the maximum amount of net revenue from every transaction you engage in. And in that model, you try to figure out what is the largest sum that we could charge for a given. The other is you are trying to reach a larger population. You're trying to increase visibility. You're trying to, frankly, we're a public institution. A&M Law School is not. We're not in the profit-making business. So given that, we are trying to disseminate knowledge and education as widely as we can. So all of that means that finding ways to make it cost effective. And again, do you have to pay the bills? Of course you pay the bills. Is there some revenue that comes out of it? Of course there is some revenue that comes out of it. But on the other hand, it's not a profit-driven model in which we are trying to say, okay, what do we do to charge as much as any given person will pay? So that's the cost effectiveness of it, the reasoning behind the cost. And then again, there's lots of things you can do in terms of making sure the platform you use is cost effective, making sure you're getting good faculty at a good cost, making sure you're engaged in efficiencies in terms of multiple things you're doing at the same time. So all of those pieces. Then how does it fit in with the thing? Again, we talked about it a little bit earlier on. So what I would say is that it's a good opportunity to engage and figure out your level of interest. And then frankly, if you're interested, then it's a stepping stone in that it gives you some ability to connect with faculty and with 𝗏𝗧𝗀 and with A&M about your ability, or demonstrating your abilities, your interests, so on and so forth. And if it does those things and it does all the other benefits, that's what makes it, from my vantage, a potentially valuable program.
Great. So one thing I must say, tomorrow we have, not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we have 𝗧𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗏, who is a professor, senior professor at the law school and a professor of IP, would be joining us and would be telling us her life story at 12 noon, right? So would be telling her how she has gone from India, her journey through, she worked in an Indian law firm at JSA, graduated from National Law School, Bangalore. Then she went to the US, started teaching there at 𝗬𝗏𝗪𝗏 University and now at TAMU, and like her journey which she's going to share. So many of you might have some, interest in having a first-hand, learning about that. Like, if you have questions about career in patent law in the US, internationally, if you want to know about any of those very specific questions about IP law, that, what you should be learning, how to plan your career, if you want to plan your career in academia in the US. So you can come and ask those questions. I've shared the registration link in the chat, so you can use the link to join, and that would be awesome, right? So looking forward to see you guys there in that session with 𝗧𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗏. And also I see a couple more hands. Bobby, do you have time? Should I take those questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, sure.
Okay. Okay, so Rajesh and 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗏𝗍, are you guys ready to ask questions? Then I will enable you to speak. I see Jubal has just raised his hand. I'll allow you to speak. And also I have shared Bobby's Twitter handle with all of you, so you can definitely follow him there as well. Right, so you can keep in touch in future. If you have any queries, questions, you can tweet at Bobby, and Bobby is quite quick on Twitter from experience. All right, so Jubal.
So may I ask my question? Yeah. So my question was about the JD program and the LLM program, and how does it compare for international students? Because according to my understanding, the JD program offers the Socratic method, and it gives you a little more of a comprehensive overview of the American legal system.
Okay, so first we have to distinguish between the residential and non-residential, and the residential and distance, or residential and online program. So for the moment, though, let me give the straight comparison, because there is no online JD. So residential LLMs and residential JDs, at least for us, I wouldn't think that that's a big distinction, right? So a residential LLM, most of their classes, almost all their classes, I think all but one class, they are integrated in with the JD students. So there's literally no difference in terms of the curricular structure. They do a foundational course, kind of an intro to US law course, to make sure they're up to speed kind of on the basics. So when they go into the other courses, they're kind of prepared and ready. But otherwise, no, there's not a curriculum-wise, there's not a. Now, when you go to online programs, obviously, it's not, if there are 100 courses in person, there's not 100 courses online. There's a more limited set. So there's a few, that's one distinction, is online, there's a narrower set. There's still options, but it's a narrower list of options. But then in those courses, again, it varies. Some of them are synchronous, some of them are asynchronous. So some of them have some components that are face-to-face or synchronous. Again, some are not. So then it'll just depend on the particular program and the structure of it. The one other thing I'd say is that, it's not, to me, I wouldn't singularly say that Socratic method good, non-Socratic method bad. The reality is that most education in the world is conveyed in a non-Socratic method. And it's not obvious to me that everyone other than lawyers are stupid. So I wouldn't overstate that. That said, if somebody says, I'm really excited about the Socratic method, then I think, at least for us, someone who's in the residential LLM program would get that to the same degree as the JD program.
All right, super. So there are more questions. So let's just I'll allow 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗏𝗍 to speak. Yes, 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗏𝗍, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and speak. Yes, 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗏𝗍, I have given you access to speak. Unmute and speak.
No.
We can hear you now.
Yes, 𝗏𝗏𝗫𝗓𝗏.
No, sir. I completed all tasks.
Okay, you don't have anything to ask. No problem.
No.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, everyone. I think we have answered all the questions. Thank you, everybody, for spending time with us so late at night, and Bobby in the morning. Thank you
My
very
pleasure.
much. Take
Thank
care.
you all.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Great to connect with you all. Thank you, Ramanaj.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.